Fantastic Four First Steps brings Marvel's first family to the MCU, and the film introduces them with grandeur, demonstrating how important their arrival is to the franchise. The filmmakers and studio heads craft an entire world solely to represent their identity and legacy. It's also the most cinematically inspired MCU movie after Thunderbolts, bringing a level of personality and craft the franchise has been missing for years. It seems like with this movie and the Thunderbolts, Marvel is finally back making thoughtfully crafted films that deliver on both imagination and cinematic artistry. Despite all of this, Fantastic Four First Steps overwhelmingly scores on average range across all major rating platforms, and a lot of people say the movie is mid. This public opinion is widely reflected on social media, where people openly share their lukewarm reaction, from countless threads and short clips to long-form video essays.
Why am I not really feeling anything? Why am I not caring as much as the movie, the narrative is believing I am?
I wanted to like it and love it so badly, but I was just kind of like, it's fine. Some of it's really good.
And what's more unfortunate is the box office numbers. Out of a $200 million budget, Fantastic Four First Steps barely passes $500 million. The reason for that is people are simply burnt out after being flooded with comic book movies for the past decade. And it's not just the sheer amount. Most of these films are profoundly lackluster. They're so corporatized and rushed for release that their quality declined dramatically. The personality and artistic intention that should have defined these movies are lost in the process. This leaves them feeling interchangeable to one another because they're all equally uninspired and lack real creative distinction, no matter if the studios impose different genres to the films. On top of that, the films ended up failing to deliver the awe and emotional resonance. Audiences aren't going to be amazed by the spectacle when they feel weightless and unfinished, lacking any sense that the fantastical elements they're witnessing are real or that there's real directorial voice behind it. On an emotional level, it's hard to be invested in the human moments when the scenes feel patched together and often secondary to the action. But since the action doesn't deliver either, the film just becomes a fun, numbing experience. The oversaturation of comic book movies that lack substance has alienated audiences to such a high level that people aren't seeing these films anymore. No comic book movie in 2025 manages to reach 700 million. Even Superman, the biggest comic book movie of the year, sit at around 600 million, well under the 700 million mark I mentioned earlier. This is the first time since 2011 that no superhero movie crossed that benchmark, and this brings us back to Fantastic Four First Steps, a movie that's genuinely worthwhile and lives up to the standards of great comic book movies, but ultimately suffers from the fatigue that years of overproduced and uninspired films created. And what about the middling reception from fans and critics alike then? Is this movie as mediocre as people say? The answer is no. Even though yes, the story is not profoundly compelling or hard to predict, and the characters doesn't carry the magnetic presence these large roles are supposed to be, or necessarily portrayed with great emotional complexity, and the film has an extremely weak third act, the movie is still a wondrous and beautifully looking film that captures the magic of the early space race and being in the unknown. Fantastic Four First Steps only got overlooked because of another comic book movie released that same month. Superman dominated the spotlight because it's a bigger name and carried more cultural weight, launching a whole new cinematic universe and reintroducing the Man of Steel. And even though Superman was hugely flawed, having a messy and incoherent story, and predominantly driven by the supporting characters instead of Superman himself, the movie's strongest elements rivals the stuff that makes Fantastic Four First Steps amazing. You can see this from the enthusiasm surrounding the film online. While a lot of people are sharing their love for Superman through fan edits, memes, and commentaries, there is barely any of that for Fantastic Four First Steps. Of course, this is partially because of the irrational cult following behind the co-head of DC Studios. But a lot of it truly seemed to come from normal fans who aren't involved in the DCU versus Snyderverse war. Though Fantastic Four First Steps may have been overshadowed and not received well enough, it's a well-crafted movie with stunning visuals and fully realized world that breaks the sense of magic superhero movies used to have. In this video, I want to talk about how Fantastic Four First Steps uses visual design to create a distinct identity that's never seen in modern MCU movies, how it brilliantly portrays the Fantastic Four as sensational public figures, how it evokes the wonders of classic science fiction. Finally, I will go through some of my favorite moments in the movie. What I love about this movie is how it creates a beautifully designed world that feels wholly the Fantastic Four. I've been yearning for the MCU to give each hero a cinematic flair that's distinctly their own, and this film does that so strikingly. It's incredibly refreshing to see how Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four First Steps have wildly different voices. Both movies look exquisite, resembling quality film, though this is more evident in the Thunderbolts. They're not only stunning on a visual level, but also inspired, with every design choice and frame feeling like it serves a purpose, whether it's to create a distinct visual identity that reflects the character's world and immerses the audience in the atmosphere, or to convey meaning in each shot. However, I don't think Fantastic Four First Steps matches the cinematic quality of Thunderbolt. Several elements in the Fantastic Four movie are definitely substandard. The way the scenes play out feels artificial and disjointed, awkwardly assembled with little natural flow or rhythm. A lot of times they're staged in a flat and uninspired way, and the editing leaves no breathing room, so the moments don't unfold organically, robbing the emotional beats of their full impact. And that's the thing, this is a typical issue for the MCU, and I'm disappointed that Fantastic Four First Steps fall for this as well. As far as I'm concerned, the studios deliberately do this to allow for reshoot because they don't even know how the story and scenes are supposed to go. The flat coverage makes it easy to modify them later, but it could also be that they're not dedicated to the craft of filmmaking and are just willingly cutting corners. You could see worse examples of this in Multiverse of Madness, Quantum Mania, and Deadpool and Wolverine, which highlight Mickey Mouse's disregard to the quality of their films. Anyhow, I'm just proud that MCU movies are starting to show real personality again. Most of their films have been completely half-assed and devoid of charm since about Civil War. At least before then, when their movies stumbled, they were because of honest shortcomings, not phone-in filmmaking. Even as genius as Ryan Coogler, who brought in phenomenal work and vision to Black Panther, the movie still ended up suffering from the same lackluster result that plagued the MCU. So to see Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Four First Steps break that cycle and commit to the creativity and voice of their movies feels absolutely refreshing. The retro-futuristic sci-fi world of the Fantastic Four is incredible, and complementing that is its signature visual style, defined by a pristine blue sheen that gives the film a stunning, polished appearance. These aren't just arbitrary choices, they're meant to reflect the presence and identity of the Fantastic Four. Same with the Thunderbolts movie. It has a mix of green and golden hues, representing the moody, ragtag tone of the Thunderbolts. Every superhero franchise should have its own unique identity. I'm tired of the MCU recycling the same uninspired visuals across nearly every installment over the past decade. I also love how the film portrays the characters themselves. The Fantastic Four is presented as extraordinary people whose personas capture our wonder and admiration. Reed Richards is a genius inventor who advanced society, Sue Storm a strong, brilliant diplomat, Ben Grimm a proficient space pilot with grit, and Johnny a charismatic sexy man who girls in that universe are probably throbbing for. Oh, and he is also really brave and smart. The depiction of Fantastic Four as these sensational public figures give the characters tremendous charm. I think Marvel introduces a spectacular and endlessly fascinating group of characters with the Fantastic Four. Now, I only say they're fascinating because of how the movie presents them. Not because they're genuinely well written, emotionally complex, or anything along those lines. The Fantastic Four serve as fairly typical characters if I'm being honest. The movie doesn't show their origin, it's been done twice already, but it does touch on it through an amazing sequence that establishes their world and history. And that montage is absolutely wonderful. We get a brief look on them before they took off into space, and it's so sweet the way the soft music plays while the family interacts with each other, throwing jokes and sharing a passionate kiss. I genuinely find it so endearing. The scary build-up as the expedition goes wrong gives an eerie twist after the warm, heartfelt moment we just saw, and then boom, the music swells and all of a sudden you feel so happy. Having that phenomenal score grace my eardrums with the loudspeaker is pure joy. I'm just nodding my head with a big smile on my face. It's pretty interesting how both superhero movies released that same month have exciting openings, but they each impact you in a completely different way. The Fantastic Four opening just fills you with a sense of excitement and pure fun, while the Superman one evokes a transcendent feeling with its beautiful and electrifying music flooding you with emotion. The way I describe it, the opening of Fantastic Four is closer to that moment of Superman flying back to Metropolis than the actual opening of Superman. The magic of Fantastic Four First Steps lies in how it captures the wonders of the cosmos and space exploration. The sense of optimism and thrill of the early space race is vividly brought to life, and the film feels reminiscent of the classic sci-fi adventures like 2001: A Space Odyssey. It has a sleek and futuristic style that's distinct from Guardians of the Galaxy, which leans on the strange, comedic, and 80s retro vibe, filled with pop songs and colorful imagery. But Fantastic Four First Steps features modern, clean visuals and an overall futuristic design. It's more grounded in science and discovery rather than vibrant and pop driven. The movie also conveys the experience of being in the unknown with incredible immersion, capturing the surreal, awe-inspiring sensation of being somewhere beyond our world. You truly feel like you're there with the Fantastic Four on their journey amongst the stars, both magical and quietly unnerving. A lot of its impact comes from how the Fantastic Four are portrayed as nothing more than explorers. They aren't space cowboys or aliens who traverse the stars like it's normal. Instead, they're deeply rooted on Earth, humans stepping into a realm greater than anything they've ever experienced. I'm extremely happy that Marvel finally recaptures the old sense of magic again. It's what has been missing in their installments for the past decade. The reason superhero movies draw our interest to begin with is that feeling of awe from the larger-than-life elements they faithfully bring to life. Sam Raimi did it with Spider-Man, pulling Marvel's most iconic characters straight from the comic books into our world, and it was awe-inspiring to see him alive, swinging through the skyscrapers of Manhattan in full glory. Then Batman Begins came along and introduced a version of the Dark Knight that felt genuinely real, but also carried a powerful, mythic presence. After that, Marvel Studios released their first movie with Iron Man, which is nothing short of extraordinary. The movie captured everybody's imagination because of Tony Stark, the embodiment of glamour. He was a celebrity genius who lived a dazzling, larger-than-life existence full of parties, money, and girls. He radiated impossible level of charisma and captivated everyone around him effortlessly. There was also Iron Man, a reflection of his ingenuity and aura, but it also symbolized his heroism, the noble, self-sacrificing character underneath the billionaire persona. The magic of the movie comes from our amazement at seeing Iron Man alive. We believe this marvelous invention was real, that a man actually built it. And the sight of the armor was spectacular because of how cool and tangible it looked. Seeing Tony in action while he donned that suit was even more awesome. When he flew for the first time, we experienced it with him, feeling the same rush he did. And Iron Man was so badass in Gulmira. The way he dropped in and took down every enemy was so cool. He saved hostages at gunpoint with precision and destroyed a tank with effortless style. There was probably no character as cool as Tony Stark up to that point. The feeling of magic used to define superhero movies. It's the reason people have so much excitement for them because they allow us to witness and experience the fantastical. But that sensation had long been missing. The studio thought they had a grip on the audience, so they didn't commit to making the fantastical felt real like they used to. There was a sense of awe of seeing these characters and the world that surrounded them. Now their presence evoke no emotion because all of them are depicted through undercooked CGI. They just seem fake and pulled us out of the story. What's even worse is that their presence just filled us with disgust. Instead of giving us awe, the Fantastical felt stupid and cartoonish. But Fantastic Four First Steps, along with Thunderbolts, restores that sense of magic. Both movies bring back the childlike joy you once had watching these films. There are apparent efforts to make the visuals, characters, and set pieces alive and iconic. Watching them, you can't help but to feel that spark again. And it's absolutely wonderful to rekindle that feeling. The wonders of the early space race is most apparent in the Excelsior launch sequence. I want to talk about this part specifically because it's what convinced me the movie is great. The sequence shows the Fantastic Four before they embark on their mission, intercutting between Reed Richards' speech, tender moments between the family, the takeoff itself, and the public's reaction. It's a neat and inventive sequence that experiments with chronology, which is a fresh, unexpected take for a Marvel movie. What's amazing about this sequence is how important the moment felt. It feels like the Fantastic Four carried humanity's hope on their shoulders. The entire Earth is watching them at that point, and the gravity felt real. Michael Giacchino's music powerfully conveys the sense of ambition and grandeur, making the takeoff feel genuinely epic, like we're witnessing humanity's first steps into the unknown. The sequence features the same score as the opening, but it fits even better here because the music perfectly captures the spirit of a space launch, grand, triumphant, and full of wonder and optimism. The moment Fantastic Four finally ascend into space feels otherworldly. The part that strikes me in awe first is when the crew arrives at the orbit of another planet, only for it to suddenly get engulfed from the inside by Galactus' ship. The sight of a whole planet collapsing into a ball of fire within moments hit me with shock. The movie truly conveys the scale of what's happening. When Galactus directs a beam on Fantastic Four's ship, also serves as a great moment. Watching the cockpit turns red as Galactus takes the rocket ship makes you feel a sense of danger, especially when he focuses light on Sue's stomach. Inside Galactus' ship, there's a sense of mystery and otherworldliness, like the Fantastic Four are truly out of their element. It evokes the feeling of first contact, an encounter with something unknown. Galactus' presence is also awe-inspiring. The movie has done a great job at portraying his scale. He feels like a cosmic force of nature. His looming figure and the deep rumble of his voice are intimidating. The Fantastic Four seem small and insignificant before him. The chase sequence with Silver Surfer, while Sue gives birth to Franklin, is undoubtedly the most incredible showpiece in the movie. I just love how each member of the family showcases their unique strengths. Reed demonstrates his genius by taking charge of the entire operation. Sue undergoes labor while protecting the whole ship. Ben runs the spacecraft, showcasing his grit and proficiency as a pilot. and Johnny controls the firearm with confidence and his trademark humor. The visuals in this scene are astonishing, from the curvature of the wormhole, Silver Surfer gliding on her surfboard, the energy beam bending with the wormhole shape, to the accretion disk of the neutron star. I don't know how accurate the depictions of these cosmic phenomena are, and they can look artificial at times, but they evoke so much beauty and wonder that you can't help but be mesmerized. The flight inside the accretion disk delivers the most incredible immersion. It feels like you're there, inside that cosmic phenomenon, experiencing something no human is ever meant to. I've never seen an MCU set piece this cinematically inspired in years. When I look at other Marvel action scenes outside of the MCU, like in the Fox and Sony films, I'm often amazed by how genuinely groundbreaking and full of life they are. Their spectacles attempt to bring the impossible to life, pushing the medium into new territories. The results are often wonders in visual effects. That's how we end up with iconic sequences like the Quicksilver slow motion scene. Meanwhile, the action scene in the MCU tend to be lifeless and generic, having a gray look and undercooked visual effects. They serve as amusement but never rise to anything memorable or impactful. That's why it's so refreshing to see Fantastic Four first steps break through that mold, finally bringing a spectacular set piece that feels bold and imaginative. Many people think the movie turns mid after this sequence is over, but I personally find it even more engaging once the story continues from there, and the third act features another sequence that's a favorite of mine when the world unites to teleport the planet, when the crew returns to Earth and reveals that they won't sacrifice their child to save the planet. The stakes feel even higher. That scene in the Baxter building where the Fantastic Four are trapped while people are angry at them outside captures the gravity of the situation. I love how the story slows down, allowing us to unpack the tension that's building. You feel the burden that the Fantastic Four carries of being hated by the whole world, along with the fear and hopelessness that the world is coming to an end. The movie also does a good job at showcasing the scale of the crisis, from the panic that ensued worldwide to the global resentment of the Fantastic Four, even to the rise of a Galactus worshipping cult. It shows how profoundly this existential threat affects the entire world. All of this makes the story even more engaging. It leaves you wondering how the family will overcome these conflicts. They just seem too great. As a result, you're glued to the story, pondering how the worldwide hatred for the Fantastic Four could subside, and how will the heroes save Earth from Galactus. I'm not arguing that the movie is a brilliant piece of storytelling. I'm just pointing out that this portion of the movie is a lot more interesting than people give it credit for. If we're talking about an MCU movie with genuinely incredible storytelling post Avengers Endgame, then it's definitely Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And so far, nothing has come close except maybe Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Following that scene in the Baxter building is the teleportation bridge sequence, which might be the last truly noteworthy moment in the film. Beyond that, the movie doesn't have much left to offer. The sequence resembles the rocket launch sequence in the beginning of the movie, showing the making and activation of the teleportation bridge from multiple perspectives. Reed explaining the plan and mechanism to teleport Earth, Sue giving a briefing on the future foundation, and the construction of the teleportation bridge all around the globe. What's remarkable about this sequence is how momentous it feels, watching humanity come together for a single, unified purpose. That moment when Sue lays out all of the material they'll need and the representatives of every country take note on each word conveys just how important this effort is. The montage of the bridge being built around the globe also visualizes the scale of the operation. There's something amazing about seeing these constructions across unique corners of the world, from one besides the Eiffel Tower to another another right near the pyramids of Giza. When they finally activate the bridge, it's such an incredible moment. The shots of each side powering up, engulfing the sky in a layer of energy, combined with the countdown and rising music, make the moment feel unbelievably huge, especially with the public at large watching in anticipation. The whole set piece made us feel like we're witnessing an unprecedented event in human history. Finally, we move on to the climactic sequence of Fantastic Four First Steps. And it's not really good if I'm being honest, but everything has been solid before this, so I will not discredit the movie just because of a weak ending, especially when the filmmakers have delivered a one-of-a-kind film that revitalizes quality and style to the franchise. There is not a lot going on in the climax. It's mostly just Galactus walking around, and there is no suspense or tension whatsoever. The story just plays out in a completely predictable manner. We're never curious to how the Fantastic Four will overcome the fight, nor are we at the edge of our seat at any point. The action isn't exciting when the Thing throws his fist or the Human Torch shooting flames against Galactus while he flies. They carry no sense of impact. The whole set piece is clearly undercooked, as if the filmmakers put the least effort into the sequence. There isn't much thought put into how to make the sequence compelling narratively, and the CGI is incredibly rough. The visuals aren't any more inspired, the sequence looks flat and profoundly lifeless, and the shots themselves make everything even worse, as if they are just there to document the action, not conveying any power or emotional weight, aside from the occasional wide shots that showcases Galactus' scale. Finally, the actors obviously look like they're shot against a green screen, appearing totally disconnected from the environment, which makes the sequence feel incredibly artificial. All in all, everything seems rushed and haphazardly assembled, as if the climax was pieced together in the last minute. Fantastic Four First Steps isn't an extraordinary film by any means, but it shows how impactful superhero movies can be when imagination and filmmaking are treated seriously. The film dares to be ambitious, attempting to bring impossible, awe-inspiring concepts to life in a way that's convincing. Its greatest misfortune is that audiences already expect mediocrity before seeing it. If Marvel continues to make films with this level of ambition and cinematic intention, then the franchise is heading to a bright future.